Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavan Ebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to our ongoing study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're studying Queen Kunti's prayers, and today we will also go on to Bhīṣmadeva. All right, so we did not quite finish the slide which we had for the last lesson, so I'll just go back to that. Maybe I'll just share the screen here. Okay, everyone can see the slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, here we are. Okay, we were at this slide talking about the Pandavas, who were ideal executors of the standard of civilization, right? That the Pandavas were not idle parasites of the Lord. They worked hard. They really endeavored. Well, particularly so in the case of the Battle of Kurukshetra, they were active. They were not simply sitting in the background and sending the soldiers out, but they were in front leading the army. And so they're good examples. And they were, Yudhisthira, of course, was administrator. And when he performed the Rajasuya sacrifice, he sent the Pandavas in different directions to conquer and to bring back gold to perform the yajna. So they were very active. They were of the highest character, and they were also hardworking. So they're good examples. We'll go ahead. Oh, we would like you to just look over text number 40, chapter 8, and see if you can pick out from that purport something about Prabhupada's mood and mission. Text number 40. Okay, I'll just read the translation. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans are full of wealth. All this is due to your glancing over them. And Prabhupada begins the purport, human prosperity flourishes by natural gifts and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. So that's certainly very much in Prabhupada's mood. Prabhupada was not so much impressed with big industries and factories, and he understood the nature of that kind of society or civilization which was only interested in industry. He saw how hellish the conditions were. People, unfortunate people, have to live in the spend their days working in these terrible places, and a few people enjoy the results. Any comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, Srivas Pandit Das here.
Yes, Prabhu.
And, this is the point in the regarding the mood and mission of Prabhupada, that Prabhupada doesn't want people to have the exploitative motive to lord it over material nature. If we exploit material nature, then we become entrapped by the reactions of the reactions also.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly true. Yeah, Prabhupada explains here in this purport about how the workers just simply become more and more dissatisfied and so much unrest. We see often there are strikes and protests, those kind of thing going on. People are not happy, they want more money. And then all of a sudden the industry collapses and is closed and everybody's made unemployed. That's also another factor which comes along. Unemployment, the risk is so great. And we can see now, the present time, so many people unemployed. So many people have lost their jobs. There's no work. Airline pilots, all the people involved in those flights, so many people out of work. And so many people in the travel industry, tourist industry, they have no work. A lot of places, people all over the world, they're in this crisis. So Prabhupada's mode was very much depend on nature, working the land and making use of natural resources. People think, oh, too simple, very primitive. But actually, it's a natural life and people can be happy and satisfied. Anyone else like to comment?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. My voice is clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Vinay Damodar, is it?
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, in this purport, Prabhupada has given us a way to come out of the current everyone devotional life, and if we do the seriously devotional services, then mercy will flow, and then natural gifts will come, and in such a way we can come out of the current cycle of industrial life and come fully dependent on God and nature, and give more time for devotional service.
Yes, give more time for devotional service. That's a good point. It's an important point. People often say like that, they have no time. They're so busy, so many hours traveling to work and coming home, and so many hours working in the office or in the factory, and they have no time. But you can see if they live a natural life, they work the land and depend on nature's resources, Then they can have proper time to engage in devotional service. Thank you, Prabhu. Would anyone else like to contribute in this discussion?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Sriram Metaidas. Maharaj, Prabhupada encouraged farm communities, which encourages simple living and high thinking.
Simple living and high thinking, yes. Definitely true. We know, of course, a lot of people like in the South, and not only South, but in India in general, the many farmers, they were attracted to go to the Middle East because they have only one season. There's only like one season when they can do farming. When the rains come, the rainy season, that time they can plant and harvest. But the rest of the year is nothing to do. And so they go off to the Middle East and they work in these places, work in some desert or some oil corporation, oil resource mining, and they're attracted. But now, you know, so many who went there, they have no work anymore. They had to come back. So it's very unpredictable, uncertain. But simple living, high thinking, if they know how to make use of their time, that's important. All right, so it's a very interesting purport. Certainly Prabhupada's mood is very much expressed in this purport, that he didn't like to see these things, the future of the world. Just going ahead. So I'll read the slide. So simply by Krishna's glancing, Kunti's expressing that so many beautiful things are there, simply by your glance. So if you simply plead for Krishna's glancing, so there is no question of scarcity, there is no question of need, everything will be complete. From Srila Prabhupada's lecture on this verse in Los Angeles.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, sorry to interrupt. May I ask one thing, Maharaj?
Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, regarding the, like you asked about the mood and mission, and so shall we take from the purport of 1.8.40 regarding the mission? Like mission is basically that everybody should undertake devotional service to the Supreme Lord to make him happy.
Yes.
Is this the correct mission of Prabhupada that we can derive from this verse?
That we can derive from this verse, that everyone can be happy.
Everyone can be happy by doing devotional service. So that is the mission of Prabhupada. Is it?
Well, certainly Prabhupada wanted everyone to have a better life. One of the missions of ISKCON was that people should have a more natural way of life and encourage people in higher thinking. Certainly, if we have a more natural way of life, generally people can be happier. You know, I was told that some time back they did a survey to find out who are the happiest people in the world, and the survey showed the people in Bangladesh were the happiest people in the world. Now, Bangladesh is not the wealthiest country in the world, but the people there were happy, living naturally, living off the land. They were actually happy in that environment. But, you know, we look at the so-called materially opulent countries, we don't see that people are happy. We don't see that people are actually peaceful and satisfied. They take so much, there's so much drug addiction, there's so much intoxication, there's so much divorce, they have so many social problems. So the opulence doesn't, just because people live in opulence with so many things for sense gratification doesn't make people happy. Happiness is not something found just by the objects of the senses. So Krishna consciousness is a process by which people can actually awaken real happiness. They can actually become peaceful. And according to the statement here by Queen Kuntī, there's no question of scarcity. There's no question of need. Everything will be complete just by Krishna's glancing. Krishna provides. So being happy with what is given to us by the grace of Krishna. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Would like to go ahead? All right, we've finished the... We've finished the text. Mood and mission. We discussed ways to develop the mood of akinchana. Do you remember in the last class we spoke about akinchana? Akinchana meaning?
Yes.
Who remembers?
Yes, Maharaj.
What does it mean?
It means that
adjusted with the material. Completely adjusted with the material.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Prabhu.
Completely exhausted with the material.
Completely exhausted with the material. Yeah, we said kinchana means something and akinchana means nothing. So akinchana gocharam, one who is gocharam meaning approaching, we can approach Krishna when we have nothing. If we think we have something, that we possess something, then it's difficult to approach Krishna. But akinchana, one who actually has nothing. So how to actually develop that mood of akinchana? Of course, you could say by Krishna consciousness, right? By cultivating the mood of Krishna consciousness, understanding that Krishna is the proprietor, that everything belongs to him. Do you remember I gave the example about two people who were akinchana from Prabhupada's lecture? I spoke about Gorkishore Das Babaji and Ramananda Rai. They were both akinchana. Now Ramananda Rai was a family man and he was a governor, but he was akinchana because he was fully Krishna conscious. He understood everything belongs to Krishna. So that is the idea. Any comments on this? Developing the mood of akinchana? No comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj,
yes?
Srivas Pandit Das here. Maharaj, just one comment that akinchana means even though a person has got everything, still he should not be attached to that thing. Then only he can approach Krishna. No? Even though, like you gave the example.
Okay.
Of Ramananda Rai has everything, but he is not attached. So he is also
right.
akinchana. And person like Sridhar Kolvecha is also akinchana. He really doesn't have anything.
Right.
Or Sudama.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj?
Yes?
I was just going to say that it also seems to be quite helpful, the distresses that one undergoes in life to become materially exhausted. One can see that there's no lasting satisfaction in sense gratification. And oftentimes that's why devotees initially come to Krishna consciousness. And then that's fortified, of course, by the sadhana practices and the philosophy, applying the philosophy in our lives. But many, many devotees come to the movement, because they're just burnt out, and they may not be fully exhausted, but they're burnt out from the distresses of material life. And that helps them choose to take up spiritual life, those negative experiences.
Very true. Very true. Many people come to Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada also said, usually we come in some kind of distress, as you put it, that they're just disgusted are exhausted with the material world. They've had enough. They just want to give up that material life. So in that sense, they're somewhat of a Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes they come to Krishna consciousness, and then again they become entangled, and then they have to become a Kṛṣṇa again. They become more Kṛṣṇa. They collect more difficult situation. All right, going ahead, personal application. Ways we can improve the uttering of the holy name with reference to 826. 826. All right, Prabhupada spoke about the chanting of the holy name in 826, about how we were that's the same verse in Akinchana Gocharam, right? That we become more Akinchana sometimes when we're in a helpless condition, when we're totally helpless. I heard from the devotees in Chaupati, I think it was maybe Radhanath Maharaj himself was giving the example, but from the Chaupati temple, they said one night there was tremors and the buildings were shaking. So in the middle of the night, everyone had to get out of the building. Everyone was outside the building in the middle of the night, and the buildings were shaking. And there was fear there was going to be a big earthquake, that the ground's going to open up. And they said it was the best chanting they ever did. So when one is in that, life-threatening situation, it can really help us to really utter the holy name with quality. But Prabhupada talks about somebody who has, if he's sitting with a lot of opulence and material satisfaction, then it's not so easy to feelingly utter the holy name. But when we're in a helpless condition, then we have greater quality. Everyone agree on that?
Yes, Maharaj.
So of course, we don't always get that opportunity, but probably it comes, and certainly at the end of life, that's also there, that chance. Try to take shelter of the holy name. Then the Pandavas, as ideal executors of work with valor, but depending completely on the Lord. We spoke about them. All right. Kunti's bewilderment in remembering devotional attitude of Yasoda. Would someone like to explain that? What was this referring to?
Kṛṣṇa Maharaj.
Yes,
it was that fear personified is being feared by the Lord Kṛṣṇa. Still, the Lord was bound up by the Mother Yashoda. So, looking to this thing, Queen Kuntī was bewildered.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, the Lord Kṛṣṇa is fear personified, but he was trembling in fear of Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, for Mother Yashoda, of course, she can only think of Kṛṣṇa as her child. She doesn't think of Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Lord. She's in her Vatsalya Ras. And Kuntī, it's not quite the same. Kunti's not on the same level of Mother Yashoda. Kunti's not a Brijbasi. She's not in that mood of Braja with the Raga Bhakti. Okay. A final quote by Prabhupada. Just like here, we're also hearing and chanting. What is the subject matter? The subject matter is Kṛṣṇa. We're not hearing here any market report. What is the price of this? What is the price of this share or that share? No, we are hearing about Kṛṣṇa. And when there is question of hearing, there must be speaking or chanting. So we are speaking and chanting about Kṛṣṇa. That is bhakti. Simply always be engaged in hearing and chanting about Kṛṣṇa. From Prabhupada's teachings of Queen Kuntī. 836. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
All right, so we'll go on to the next text, next lesson. I'll just have to open it. Oh, no, what is this? Sorry. Oh, Kṛṣṇa. Okay, lesson 4. Can everyone see?
Yes, Maharaj.
Slide is visible?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Good. Okay, so we're going on to hear about Yudhisthira's dejection and then Bhīṣmadev's instruction. Review of lesson 3. We had quite a bit of already. Anyway, the meaning of Akinchana Gocharam we talked about and discussed ways to develop that, ways we can improve the chanting, Krishna's bewilderment, the Pandavas as ideal executors, and Prabhupada's statement about human prosperity. All right, so we'll go on to lesson 4. Prayers of Queen Kuntī. We're still on prayers of Queen Kuntī. Here's text number 41. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. So Queen Kuntī is in this unfortunate position. We could say unfortunate, actually it's very fortunate, because she has kinsmen. She has relationships both with the Pandavas and with the Vrishnis. All right, what's happening? You can see from the picture, Lord Krishna is getting ready to go to Dwarka to be with the Vrishnis, and means he's going to leave the Pandavas. So Queen Kuntī is approaching the Lord, and at this time, of course, she offers her prayers to the Lord. And here's one of the prayers, well-known prayer. Maybe when you go to, if you're in Mayapur, you go to Ganga, you take bath in Ganga, you'll chant this verse. All right, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So Queen Kunti's prayer is like that. She's attracted to both the Pandavas and to the Vrishnis, but she wants that her attraction should simply be to Kṛṣṇa without hindrance. So from Prabhupada's purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, to cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. So, going back to this verse, this 42 and also 41, sever my tie of affection for my kinsman. You know, this could be abused. There could be some problems, people coming to Krishna consciousness, and they may want to give up all kinds of relationships with family and relatives, that these relationships are just a hindrance to me. Do you have any experience like this and working with devotees? Sometimes a new devotee comes and he wants to get away from the family. He wants to leave. He may even be married. He wants to leave his wife, or the wife wants to leave the husband and leave the children. They just want to be a devotee, and they may quote this verse. They may quote Queen Kuntī. You know that these kind of things do happen. We did have cases, right? Young women coming to Krishna consciousness, and then later on regretting it or making a court case against the movement, and we have to pay so much money to the family. These kind of things. So Srila Prabhupada explains here that cutting off the tie of affection does not mean negation of the finer elements, like affection for someone else. It's natural to have feelings, to have affection. This is a symptom of life. So when Queen Kuntī is praying, she's offering these prayers in the mood of the pure devotee, very elevated pure devotee. But we're encouraged to follow in the footsteps of great devotees, right? So is it wrong if somebody wants to give up all connections with the family and with these other people? Any comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu.
I have one question. If your kind permission is there, may I ask?
All right.
Maharaj, actually, Queen Kuntī had such nice children in form of Pandavas who were pure devotees. So actually, it is very difficult to cut the attachment of such nice children. So similarly, the parents of children, they are always having the attachment to the children, because if children are unhappy, the parents also become unhappy. So it's very, very difficult to cut the attachment. So how we should pray, and how to understand the prayer of Maharani to basically to cut the attachment of the family members.
Well, how to understand the prayers of Queen Kuntī, we have to understand with the help of Srila Prabhupada.
Yes,
right?
Maharaj.
By Srila Prabhupada's commentary on this verse. So I'm quoting from the purport here, and Prabhupada was explaining here that we cannot simply give up the affection. It's not possible. So you have children, naturally you have some affection for them. And Prabhupada also, of course, he had children of his own. And he tried his best to give them Krishna consciousness. But at a certain point, you have to give them independence, right? I'm sure, Janmastami, I know you have two sons, right?
Right.
Would you like to express something about this?
Well, Prabhupada in the purport, at the end of the purport to 42, what he's describing is that we should cut off the skin relations and develop the relationship with the soul. So the tendency in a family, even in a devotee family, is to be on the skin level, to see it from a material standpoint, the relationships and the emotions or whatever. But it's a bit of a struggle. And this is actually, my sense, the responsibility of the father or the husband to put it on the platform of the soul, where everything is encouraged for spiritual development. And that kind of solves the problem, then the attachment's not there. That diverts us from our developing attachment for Krishna. And diverts our spiritual development.
Okay.
It's possible, but it's not easy.
Definitely not easy, right? Yeah. We have also, of course, Lord Chaitanya taking sannyas at the age of 24 and leaving his young wife. I think Vishnupriya was 16, and she was with his mother, an elderly mother. So was that irresponsible of Lord Chaitanya? But of course, his purpose was for the greater cause. You cannot just simply stay at home and think only to deliver the family. The other example is Lord Ramachandra, that Lord Ramachandra also gave up his wife so that he could show the example of the ideal king. I don't know what the ladies who are in our class think. Would you like to respond? Some Mataji from the class? You could give us your contribution, your feeling on this matter.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, can I answer? I'm Kṛṣṇa Tara Devidasi. Prabhuji,
Okay.
even Ma Sita, she also left Ramchandra. As Ramchandra left, Sita ji also, she went to the forest just because everyone, just for I mean, she didn't worry about herself. At that time, she was pregnant, but she didn't worry. She said, no, for your glory and for everyone's benefit, I'll go myself. And she went away. And that way, I feel.
Oh, really? It's like that, is it? She herself went willingly.
Yeah, she in fact, like willingly, yeah, she encouraged Ramchandra to leave her, I mean, that time. And she said, I'll go myself. And she encouraged him to follow his, what other people are saying. She didn't think about herself.
Some people criticize Lord Ramachandra. They say it was very harsh and cruel of him to do this.
Yes, and and she really always blessed everyone. She was very compassionate towards all, always.
Okay. So you're not having any difficulties with this. You give your sanction and you give their approval,
huh? What I feel is like we should, yes, if it is like suppose Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did for a good cause, a greater cause, then God is, I mean, then there is always God. God will be there to protect our family members. So, like we should, in fact, as a wife, I have that sense of, I mean, attachment, but at the same time, I should have more attachment towards God. So God will help me materially also and spiritually also.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Thank you. So,
Mark,
yes?
I had one additional thought on that. Like last summer, a couple summers ago, I was listening to a Bhagavatam class that Radhanath Swami gave, and it really resonated with me. And he was saying that in older age, if the father or the mother, they go for Vanapras, it establishes a good example for the children, of what the priorities in life should be. So kind of establishes a culture. We don't see that happen much within our movement. There are very few devotees that actually go for Vanaprast. And that's unfortunate because it's a very valuable period in one's life where spiritual advancement can be greatly accelerated.
Well, I think there are quite a few people, they may not announce it, they may not put it into saffron dress or something, but there are quite a few people who recognize that, they're internally, they're in the mood of Vanaprastha, although they may not officially declare it. So, yes, it's definitely important for the children to see the example. And we heard about Prabhupada's son Vrindavan, the youngest son. He came to see Prabhupada when Prabhupada was leaving on Jaladuta to go to America. So the devotee, they asked Vrindavan Chandra about what were you thinking when you watched your father go on the Jaladuta sailing off to America? And he said, I felt very proud of my father. So that's very nice. You know, that the son can feel pride in what the father's doing. So we don't usually see that kind of example in old age, but it's certainly a need to go, the older people that, you know, to go to retire and go to the holy places, show the nice example. But here we're talking about, you know, they're not in the old age, they're still young. The Pandavas are still young, they're not ready to retire. And Queen Kuntī, she has these children, and at the same time she has affection for the Vrishnis, it's her family side. And so she's torn between the two. So we have to understand what is skin affection and what is for Krishna's service. Sometimes it's difficult to see the difference. Prabhupada states here on the slide, only the objective has to be changed. Desire cannot be negated, but in devotional service, the desire is changed only for the service of the Lord in place of desire for sense gratification. So what is for the service of Krishna and what is for our own sense gratification? Now, sometimes it's a fine line. Sometimes it's difficult to see. Therefore, it's important to take instruction, to take guidance, to hear from other people, sadhu, shastra, guru, very important to help us to understand what is the proper action to take. Not to act whimsically or just impulsively. Okay, any other comments on this?
Maharaj, sorry, my obeisances, Anir Puran from South Africa. Just a quick question. Can you maybe share some of your own experience in your own life about how you arrived at sannyas?
Oh.
In relation to this verse?
Well, how did I get to sannyas? Well, you know, Krishna just arranges, you know, these things. You wouldn't, you know, I didn't take sannyas very young. I was already over 40 when I took sannyas. So that's about the right age. You know, you don't want to be too young. So material life is always challenging and threatening. I took sannyas. What happened was I served in the Far East under Tamal Kṛṣṇa Maharaj. So Tamal Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, he liked very much to have sannyasis with him. He liked to see men also take sannyas. So he, you know, he was my inspiration. You need to have that. You need to have somebody there inspiring you, directing you. So he was. At one point, I didn't want to take sannyas, but at one point, because I'd seen you know, different people fall down and give up sannyas, and it was very horrible to hear about these things. So I really didn't. I thought I'm not going to. I don't want to risk it. But then later on, Tamal Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, he wanted me to. He said you should start taking disciples. So because he was the only spiritual master, and he said, I can't initiate everyone. He said, you should also take some disciples. And so I was nominated to be a spiritual master. At that time, I was still brahmachari. And so then after some time, after although I was nominated as a sannyasi, I didn't, although I was accepted as a spiritual master, I hadn't initiated anyone. But later on, it became more and more necessary. I had people waiting for initiation. They'd taken shelter in several years, and I hadn't initiated them. So then I thought it's appropriate, you know, if I'm going to initiate people, I should be a sannyasi. So then I approached Tamal Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, and so he recommended me that I could also take sannyas. So like that, I thought it was a necessary step. If I'm going to act as a spiritual master, then taking sannyas will be the right situation to act as a spiritual teacher. Of course, it's not actually really necessary, but I thought it was a necessary step. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
One more quote about Queen Kuntī here, text 37. Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? And so this was the prayers of Queen Kuntī. She's saying that these other kings, we've fought the battle of Kṛṣṇa, and so many kings have been killed, but their children are all there, their descendants are there, and they may come and they may attack us. So who's going to protect us if you're going to go? These kings are still they're still our enemies. And so we're depending on you for your mercy, but you're leaving us. So this is the mood of Queen Kuntī praying to Kṛṣṇa, you please stay with us. So Prabhupada quotes that Queen Kuntī felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the Queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. So we also want to always stay with the Lord by remembering, chanting the holy name. From text 43, no amount of chosen words is sufficient. No amount of chosen words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory. And yet he is satisfied by such prayers as Father is satisfied, even by the broken linguistic attempts of the growing child. So offering words like this, no matter our qualification, the idea, well, as Prabhupada says here, the broken words of a child are very pleasing to the Father. So in the same way, it's difficult for us to describe the glory of Lord Kṛṣṇa, but just making the attempt is the important thing, to try to make that attempt to glorify the Lord. We feel ourselves unqualified in every way, but still we just try our best, and we pray to Kṛṣṇa to help us, to give us the ability to speak something which may be of value or may be meaningful. All right, so we can go on to the next topic that and we're going to hear about Maharaj Yudhishthira's situation, of course, after the battle of Kurukshetra. Maharaj Yudhishthira, we've put a little bit here. Lord Kṛṣṇa, as the super soul of King Yudhishthira, he does not allow the king to be convinced, neither by the words of Vyasa or by Lord Kṛṣṇa himself. What are the actual reasons for Yudhishthira's dejection? Can you give some of the reasons, some of the different points which are listed there? Why Maharaj Yudhishthira is so dejected? What's the problem?
Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, that Yudhishthira Maharaj thought that because he was enthroned for this kingdom, whole massacre was there. Because of enthroned him, whole massacre was there. So he was feeling rejected.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not very clear to me. Did somebody hear what he was saying?
No, Maharaj.
To enthrone, he thought that because whole massacre was in the battlefield of Kṛṣṇa was there just to enthrone him. So he felt rejected.
Yes, can you, I'm sorry, I couldn't get it.
He thought that whole massacre in the battlefield of Kṛṣṇa was just to enthrone him. So he felt...
Oh. All the deaths on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were because of him?
Yes, Maharaj.
So how many people died on the battlefield?
64 crore.
640 million.
Okay, 64 crore, yeah. A crore is 10 million. So 640 million. This is a big number of people, right? How many people are dying with the COVID virus? Over 1 million, 2 million. Insignificant compared to the Battle of Kurukshetra, right? So that was one reason. Any other reasons? From the text, there are reasons in the text. If you read the different texts, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, I think you can find reasons.
Yes, Maharaj, that he was killing innocent people, women and different.
Who?
Yudhishthira Maharaj was feeling responsible for it.
Where were the innocent people killed? I never heard of this.
Is there in verse 49 is killed many boys, brahmanas, Gaudishas.
Oh, okay. The killing of the, killing of the, well, in 49, it says he was thinking of staying in hell for millions of years. Why?
Because of killing, they were killed different, like brahmanas and boys. Because killing a brahmana is a very sinful activity.
All right, but the brahmanas were all engaged in battle, right? They were like Dronacharya is a Brahmin, but he was engaged in the battle. But of course, he was killed by some trick. It's true. He wasn't actually killed in a very fair way.
But Maharaj Yudhishthira was thinking because he was have a very good character and he was feeling like a devotee about this incident there, and he was feeling himself responsible for this.
Okay.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, one more point.
Responsible for everything. Yes.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, he was feeling that Duryodhana was also ruling the kingdom quite well.
Right.
So, and there was all citizens were all happy with him, but still because Yudhishthira wanted to become king, that's why so many people had to be killed.
Right. Duryodhana was already doing quite a good job. Nobody was really complaining about him. He was doing quite a good job. But Maharaj Yudhisthira, the Pandavas, well, it wasn't so much that they wanted to rule, but they just wanted some land. They just wanted to be Kshatriyas. They didn't want to have nothing.
So he was feeling that just for the sake of justice or to avoid injustice to be for himself, so many people had to be killed.
Okay, for the sake of justice, he was thinking that so many people's lives were sacrificed. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Maharaji.
Another reason I think is for the Yudhishthira's dejection is because Krishna wanted him to be instructed by Bhīṣmadeva, and that's why Maharaja Yudhishthira was convinced, couldn't be convinced by the words of Vyasadeva and Krishna.
Yes, this is a very good point. Yes, that Krishna wants Yudhisthira to go there to be with grandfather Bhīṣma.
Also, right? Another reason, Maharaj, is because so many of there were so many grieving women after the battle. So many millions of husbands and sons have been killed, and so there was probably millions of women who were grieving with tears. So he was feeling for them. He was feeling for their suffering.
Oh, wow. Yudhisthira was feeling the grief of these women who have become widows.
Yeah, yeah.
Their husbands are not going to come home.
Yeah, he's feeling compassionate.
He's feeling some sorrow, some compassion for them. Okay, it's an interesting point. Yeah. Okay, let me see. I've got some points here. Lord desired that King Yudhisthira be pacified by the words of Bhīṣmadeva. We heard this one from Maharaji. Yeah, Lord Kṛṣṇa actually wanted this. He wants Bhīṣmadeva to reveal his glory in the presence of everyone. Bhīṣmadeva hasn't actually spoken much. He hasn't given a lot of instruction, but actually he's a Mahajan, and it's revealed at the time of death. He revealed everything, his actual spiritual position, and he reveals his great depth of knowledge and realization. And it also allows Bhīṣmadeva to see Lord Kṛṣṇa personally at the time of his departure from the world. That by Pandavas going there with Lord Kṛṣṇa will be personally in the presence of Bhīṣmadeva, and he can give up his body looking at Lord Kṛṣṇa. Bhīṣmadeva will also see his beloved grandchildren situated on the throne. So Bhīṣmadeva is going to be happy to see these Pandavas, right? After the battle's over, now the battle's over and everyone's killed and Yudhisthira's on the throne. So Bhīṣmadeva is certainly going to be happy about this situation because Bhīṣmadeva is very concerned for the welfare of the Pandavas. And so at the time of his departure, he can see the Pandavas and he can see how happy they are having won the battle of Kṛṣṇa and how they become the rulers. So grandfather Bhīṣma can peacefully leave the world. And all could see that Bhīṣmadeva excelled all in knowledge. Okay. One of Prabhupada's lectures on this. So he was thinking like that, but the real point he was missing, that whatever he has done, it has been done under the instruction of Kṛṣṇa. Therefore, for ordinary men, this is a great sin. For sense gratification, if we kill so many persons, we are liable. But so far the Pandavas are concerned, they did not do it for their sense gratification. They did it for Kṛṣṇa. Therefore, whatever they had done, that was right. So Maharaj Yudhisthira was you know, he wasn't thinking that I did it for Kṛṣṇa. He was thinking, I did it for my sense gratification. But actually, he did it really for Kṛṣṇa. It's just like Arjuna was placed into illusion at the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra. So in a similar manner, Yudhisthira was also bewildered, and he was thinking that I've taken part in this battle just for my sense gratification. But it wasn't really like that. He did it under the direction of Lord Kṛṣṇa. So here's a nice illustration of Grandfather Bhīṣma on his bed of arrows, waiting to depart from the world. So just to go over what's happening in the chapter here, chapter 9. The Pandavas come with Lord Kṛṣṇa, Maharaj Yudhisthira. They all come before Grandfather Bhīṣma. And along with Lord Kṛṣṇa, so many sages also come. They're all coming for a very auspicious event, the departure of Lord Bhīṣma, departure of Bhīṣmadeva from the world. Bhīṣmadeva has this power that he can leave the world at will. And so everyone's coming to witness and to hear his final words. I think he fell. In the battle of Kurukshetra was how many days?
18 days.
18 days. And Bhīṣmadeva fell on which day?
10th day.
11th day, I think.
On the 11th day, was it? Okay. And so, and Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the Ekadasi day, right? So that was like, the recent Bhagavad Gita was spoken on the Gita Jayanti we had on 25th of December, just in last month. So Bhīṣmadeva fell. So the battle of Kurukshetra began after the speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, and then 11 days fighting, and then Bhīṣmadeva falls, and then he's laying on the bed of arrows, and he has to wait for the Uttarayana, right? He has to wait for the changing of the direction of the sun. So it took some time. He was laying on the bed of arrows for many, many days. And after the battle finished, then they all come, Pandavas come, Lord Kṛṣṇa comes, and the sages come. And Bhīṣmadeva is still laying on his bed of arrows. And he's ready. He's very happy to see that. He welcomes them. And when he meets them, Bhīṣmadeva begins to speak about the suffering which the Pandavas have undergone. Because Bhīṣmadeva appreciates, he understands the situation, he can understand the mind of Yudhisthira, and he understands how he's feeling very dejected and guilty. So Bhīṣmadeva is speaking about the suffering which these Pandavas had undergone, and how it was very painful for him to see the Pandavas suffering. And Bhīṣmadeva explained that actually the cause of this suffering was caused by Kṛṣṇa in his form as eternal time. Bhīṣmadeva didn't blame anyone, but it's simply due to eternal time. We know the nature of the material world is problematic. There's always going to be these different issues, conflicts. And Bhīṣmadeva simply said, this is all the plan of the Lord. It's due to eternal time. And then after that, then being requested by Maharaj Yudhisthira, Bhīṣmadeva speaks. Now, Bhīṣmadeva's in a very difficult situation, laying on the bed of arrows, and usually somebody's in that condition, they're going to leave the body, we would think, oh, don't disturb him. But Lord Kṛṣṇa wanted Bhīṣmadeva to speak, because Lord Krishna wanted to show the actual glory of Grandfather Bhīṣma, how he is transcendentally situated. And Bhīṣmadeva spoke on Varnashram Dharma. And the actual Mahabharata, if you get the full Mahabharata, you'll see the major portion of the Mahabharata are the instructions of Bhīṣmadeva. Most Mahabharatas which are published, they don't print all the teachings of Bhīṣmadeva. If they do, it's very brief. They give very brief. But the actual Mahabharata, as compiled by Vyasadeva, is full of so many instructions from Grandfather Bhīṣma. He spoke for many, many days at great length and explained all different topics. So he did all of this just to show his transcendental situation. Lord Krishna wanted everyone to see the glory of Grandfather Bhīṣma, how even though he's in such a difficult condition, very similar to our Srila Prabhupada. The Srila Prabhupada, and probably all of you have seen the film of Srila Prabhupada dictating Srimad Bhagavatam while he's in his final days. Only in a few days later he will leave the world. But he was still laying there on his bed in Vrindavan, in Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he's speaking purports to Srimad Bhagavatam, and the devotees are recording. So just like Grandfather Bhīṣma, and we have also, of course, the departure of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur's departure in the presence of Lord Chaitanya, performing kirtan and holding the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, and Haridas gave up his body. So these are these glorious manners to depart from the world. Any comments? Anything?
I have a question. Does anybody know, I haven't really studied Mahabharata, but how is it that Bhīṣmadeva, he was shot through with arrows? Is that how he ended up on a bed of arrows? It's unusual. I've heard that so many times, but it just dawned on me. How did that happen?
Well, they're all Arjuna's arrows.
Oh, okay.
Bhīṣma was proud of that. He was proud of being filled with Arjuna's arrows. He wanted that.
So he shot him while he was standing up, and then he fell over. He shot through him. I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maharaj, any document regarding how many days Bhīṣmadeva laid on bed of arrows?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen any document myself, but somebody mentioned to me it was like something 30 odd days. I don't know how accurate it is. It's something I'd have to investigate, but certainly many days. In Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't go much into these kind of details. We give we're more interested in the message and the philosophical teachings rather than the time span or the chronology.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, can I say
yes,
something?
Please.
Maharaj, like you described already, like for example, last year, December 2020, the Ekadashi was, when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, was 25th December.
Yes.
And Uttarayan starts from 14th January.
Yes, that was this year.
Yeah.
But so not like that every year.
Yeah. So approximately, will it be around 10 days or 2 weeks, or I don't know?
It'd be longer.
Longer. Okay.
Yes. I heard longer.
Longer. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yes.
I have one question. If your kind permission is there, may I ask?
Yes, you can ask.
Actually, Bhīṣmadeva was lying on the bed of arrows for such a long time, so he must be suffering a lot of pain. And he being a pure devotee and a Mahajan, that means very exalted devotee. So he must be knowing how to get transferred to the kingdom of the God without bearing this pain for such a long time.
Yes, but remember, I'm saying that he was in a lot of pain, but he could tolerate the pain, that he was transcendental to the pain. And he considered it more important to give the instructions to the Pandavas and to Maharaj Yudhisthira. He wants to encourage Maharaj Yudhisthira in his role now, that Maharaj Yudhisthira is the monarch. He has to rule. And Bhīṣmadeva wants to encourage him and give him instructions and guidance, what he has to do and how to fulfill his obligations. He doesn't want Maharaj Yudhisthira to feel guilty and to feel despondent. So he's spending that time, he's remaining in the body to give these, and he's been waiting for Lord Kṛṣṇa to come. And when the auspicious time comes, when the sun starts to move to the north, Bhīṣmadeva chose that as the auspicious time. Actually, he could have left the body at any time. Lord Kṛṣṇa had been there for some time, but he waited until the sun started moving to the north, because according to the scriptures, that is the auspicious time to leave the body. So Bhīṣmadeva wanted to show everything for a nice example for everyone. Just like Srila Prabhupada could have left the body anywhere, but he chose to return to Vrindavan because he considered that to be the best place to leave the world. You know, Prabhupada could have left the body in America, he could have left the body in Europe, but he was happy to be back in Vrindavan because he considered that to be his home. And he thought it's the best place to leave the world. So the example is very important. So Bhīṣmadeva was showing this example for everyone.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
All right.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu.
Srivas Pandit. Just one thought came to my mind. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wanted to leave his body in Calcutta in the battlefield of preaching. So he left.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, right. Yeah, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he left the body. He'd been in Puri, and then he came back from Puri, and he went to the Bara Bazar, the Chaitanya Mat, the Bara Bazar, Gaudiya Mat temple there in Bag Bazar, and left the body there. And after he departed from the world, then they brought his body in the train. They had a special train to bring his body out here to Mayapur, and they put his body in Samadhi in Mayapur. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati chose like that. Different devotees had different choices, like His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he chose to leave his body in USA. You know, he could have come to India, but he chose, he wanted to leave it in USA with the devotees who he'd been working with there, surrounded by them. And so it's not hard and fast, you have to do this, but different devotees have their different desires, and they want to show their example in different ways. For some devotees, it's certainly very convenient to leave the body in their own home place, surrounded by people they know. You know, sometimes people think, I want to go to Vrindavan and leave the body, but if they can't speak the language, they don't know people there, who will take care of them? They'll be helpless, they'll be alone. It's not very good. It's better to be with people, surrounded by people they know, who know them and who have relationships with them and who they can communicate with. You know, if I have some old ladies from China who want to come to Vrindavan and leave the body, I don't encourage them. I don't think it's necessary because they don't know English, they can't speak the language, they don't know people there. And so it's better they leave the body in the association of devotees in their own place. Right? Is it clear?
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Maharaj?
Yes, Prabhu?
Yes, here is Murari Das. I wanted, I heard one lecture where Kṛṣṇa wanted Bhīṣmadeva to show that even such a great hero like Bhīṣmadeva was not able to win if he was fighting on the other side, on the wrong side. So,
right.
And also by the living of the Bhīṣmadeva, I was hearing that Uttarapayana also means that Kṛṣṇa who protect Uttara, Maharaj Parīkṣit. That was also the name of him.
Yes, right. But Lord Kṛṣṇa had been there for many days in front of Grandfather Bhīṣma. So it wasn't that as soon as Lord Kṛṣṇa came, he immediately left the body. Grandfather Bhīṣma waited. He spoke for many, many days, giving instruction to Yudhisthira. Right? We mentioned one of those reasons. We mentioned, just let me go back to that previous slide. Yeah, all could see Bhīṣmadeva excelled all in knowledge. You know, sometimes people wonder, how is it Bhīṣmadeva is a Mahajan? So he showed it at the time of his departure on the battlefield. That's when he revealed his actual position as a Mahajan. It came in this final Leela, departing from the world. Okay?
Maharaj, there was a previous slide. I think I missed it. Could kindly show it, the previous one, just this one, previous one.
This one?
No, before this one. Yes, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay, going ahead. Speaking about the wonderful influence of inevitable time, Grandfather Bhīṣma pacifying the mind of Maharaj Yudhisthira. So writes, despite the power of pious acts, the power of personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons under the direct supervision of Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Pandavas suffered so many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of Kala, inevitable time. You know, you have everything, but still you suffer. They didn't do it. So try to understand, their suffering was not due to karma. This is the point. It's due to simply the influence of time, inevitable time. Kala is identical with the Lord himself, and therefore the influence of Kala indicates the inexplicable wish of the Lord himself. There is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. So that's a very valuable, very powerful point made by Srila Prabhupada. When it's beyond the control of any human being, there's nothing to be lamented. We have to understand like that. We have to understand these things in the proper way. So by the help of Grandfather Bhīṣma, we're appreciating the effects of Kala, the influence of the Lord. Simply beyond the control. There's nothing we could do about it. So there's no reason for Maharaj Yudhisthira to be despondent. The sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. The Lord has had to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. This was Lord Kṛṣṇa's reason. Although Duryodhana was ruling and doing a good job, the Lord wanted that the devotees should rule. He didn't want just Duryodhana. He didn't just simply want good management. He wanted devotee management. That's the plan of the Lord. So Lord Kṛṣṇa arranged this, the difficulties, all the sufferings which they had to go through, It's all temporary. Of course, the sufferings which we all go through, it's all temporary. Sufferings are not eternal. We have to understand the plan of the Lord. So the Lord wanted to bring the Pandavas in a glorious situation. See here. Accept tribulations as a benediction. The popular saying is that a housewife teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. Similarly, the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotees. We often give that example, right? The daughter-in-law is taught by the mother. She teaches her daughter because daughter-in-law is too sensitive. She's just recently married and come to the home. Mother doesn't want to upset her. So she teaches her daughter and hopes the daughter-in-law will learn. The same way the Lord is teaching the world by teaching his devotees. Whenever, therefore, a show is made to teach the devotee, it is for teaching the less intelligent men. A devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. From chapter 9, text number 17. This is a mindset. We have to adjust the mind, understand when tribulations come, it's a benediction. And Prabhupada saw that like that. Prabhupada had also his tribulations, difficulties in his family life. And of course, Prabhupada used to remember those words of Kṛṣṇa in Srimad Bhagavatam. Kṛṣṇa says, when I'm very merciful to someone, I take everything away from them. So Prabhupada saw Kṛṣṇa take everything away from him. His business, his money, the family were no longer respectful. He saw it was all Kṛṣṇa's plan. Kṛṣṇa took everything away. It was a benediction so that Prabhupada was more free to go and preach. And of course, Kṛṣṇa gave him so much more. He gave him so much more wealth and so many more children and so many more homes. So we must see also the plan of the Lord, the tribulations, the difficulties, that they're a benediction. Thank you, Kṛṣṇa. Exchange of transcendental bhava. Tribulations imposed upon the devotees by the Lord constitute another exchange of transcendental bhava between the Lord and the devotees. The Lord says, I put my devotees into difficulty, and thus the devotee becomes more purified in exchanging transcendental bhava with me. Well, we had it's similar to what we studied in Queen Kuntī, that when we're in a dangerous situation, we have greater attachment for the Lord. If we're materially comfortable, it's not very good for our spiritual life. It's better we put ourselves into, accept some difficulties, accept some hardships. It's actually very good for us to develop our transcendental consciousness. Everyone agree?
Yep.
Now we're all in difficulty, many in difficulty with the lockdown and different things going on. So it's very good for us. More hearing and chanting, more intense devotional service. Oh, I don't know if we want to do this exercise. We don't have a lot of time left. Let me see, we'll come back. Maybe we'll go on. First, we can always come back to that. Bhīṣmadev's instructions to Maharaj Yudhisthira. So we're hearing he's going to speak about Varnashram Dharma. So Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa inspired Maharaj Yudhisthira to ask Bhīṣmadeva in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee, like Bhīṣmadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. So you cannot judge the person's spiritual position just by material circumstances. Prabhupada writes, one should not have asked him any question at that time, but Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. That is really a great test for a devotee, right? To be in that condition. I was able to see some films. Burijan Prabhu was showing some film. He had made some film because he was a very good friend of Gunagrahi Maharaj. Now, Gunagrahi Maharaj, he left his body in Vrindavan about a year ago now, maybe, or less. And they had he has films of all the kirtan they were doing. They were having Gunagrahi loved kirtan, and they would have kirtan constantly and constantly. And the day he left his body, they were also having kirtan. All the devotees were having, Govinda Maharaj was there, of course, because he was also a very close friend of Gunagrahi Maharaj. And it was very powerful to see how the devotees were behaving and how the kirtan that was going on. And Gunagrahi Maharaj is departing from the world. He's been suffering for cancer for some time. And it was very painful, but the kirtan was really powerful. It was an amazing thing to see this departure, how the devotee leaves. So here's Grandfather Bhīṣma, and he's also departing, but before he departs, he's speaking. Prabhupada writes, the father likes to see the son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very emphatically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of the Lord himself. Lord Kṛṣṇa likes to see his devotee glorified. Lord Kṛṣṇa was there. But Lord Kṛṣṇa wanted Grandfather Bhīṣma to get the credit. This is the Lord's reciprocation with his devotee. He likes to see his devotee glorified. Kṛṣṇa could have won the battle of Kurukshetra, but he gave the credit to Arjuna. He let Arjuna get the credit. And similarly here, Kṛṣṇa could have pacified Maharaj Yudhisthira, but he wants Bhīṣmadeva to do it. And Bhīṣmadeva is getting the glory, he's speaking. All right, so maybe you could just spend a few minutes to do this exercise. Taking into consideration Bhīṣmadeva's instructions to Maharaj Yudhisthira, make a list. If you want, you can draw a picture. Show aspects of how your community would be organized. 2 groups. You're a member of a small community existing after a world war in which most of the world's population was wiped out, right? Group A, based on verse 26, and Group B based on verse 27. Do you think you could spend 10 minutes? So can we make 2 groups?
Yeah. Shall I break down the group, Maharaj?
Yeah, we need 2 groups, Group A and Group B.
Yeah, okay. Shall I create?
Yes, please. All right. Yeah. So can we have some feedback? A spokesman for Group A, speaking on verse number 26. Verse number 26. We'll just read the text.
Yeah. 26, the text. I can read that.
Okay, please.
At Maharaj Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhīṣmadeva first defined all the classifications of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. We didn't have so much time, and it's a long purport. So we started discussing, just the establishment of Daivivan Ashram. We're a small community. Most of the world population has been taken away by World War. And so everyone's in a very distressed circumstance. And we have some Vaishnavas in that community, maybe not all. And so we're going to try to establish someone as a Kshatriya to get the ball rolling. And then he'll have a team of others that are like-minded, and they'll consult with a Brahminical class that will also start schools for the children. And we'll also be giving regular lectures for the community. And then the Vaishyas will live a very simple life, not for economic development, but simple living. And barter system will be in place to will try to avoid competition, which led to the World War. And then the Bhīṣmadeva advised all human beings, advised for all human beings 9 qualifications: not to become angry, not to lie. And we felt that this would be principles whereby the community would function, following these 9 points from Bhīṣmadeva. Well, there was some discussion that took place in the last 50 seconds on detachment and attachment, but it wasn't really clear to me what we came up with. So maybe we open that up for others in the group to bring up. I think that was basically it. And and then the ashrams, the boys go into Gurukul, have brahmachari training. The girls are trained to develop the skills to be proper wives and mothers. And then the grihastas, that's all arranged. We try to arrange proper marriages with that, and based upon the qualifications, matching people up nicely. And one of the principles, of course, is to let's see. No, I guess that was to beget children only by one's legitimate wife, because the whole idea was to move more and more into Daivivan Ashram, where it's actually a Vaishnava community. And then we didn't really get around to discuss. There was some discussion in the last 50 seconds or so on sannyasa and brahmachari, but I don't think we got so far with all that. Anyway, that's pretty much what I've got to present.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Any comments from anyone?
Kṛṣṇa Maharaj, there are 4 varnas and 4 ashram: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Brahman is to teach on the basis of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam how to control the senses. Kshatriya has to give the protection of the community. Vaishya has to do for animal protection. Shudras should not be allowed to have banking. They should not have the money with them because they will misuse. And then we have to use 2 principles: attachment and detachment. Attachment is for the householder, those who are Grasta ashram. The attachment is for Vanprastha and Sannyasis. Brahmacharis, they can teach both the groups. They are being trained in such a way. Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's group A. You were with Janmashtami, Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Yes. All right. Can we go to the next group? Group B, dealing with text 27.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, actually I was asked by the devotees to give the summarized discussion. So first point that came was that king should have systematic knowledge for the welfare of all, and this is only possible when the king works under the direction of Brahmins as per Shastric knowledge, and then only there could be a proper application of Varnashram Dharma. Then ruler should select cabinet not on voting basis, like from the perspective of democracy or the exercise of democracy, but the ruler should select cabinet as per the qualification. Only those people who are qualified, they should be given responsibility. Then qualification is given, if the people are qualified, then they should only be given the position and responsibility. And also it should be ensured that Brahmins are treated well. Then it was also discussed that the people should, the king should ensure, and his ministers should ensure that the Lord is served well, Lord is happy. And if we do not do that, then what is going to happen is that the people will be put into the material conditions of life, and there can be no liberation where we are trying to get ourselves free from birth, old age, death and disease. So king or the father or the spiritual master has to see that his subjects are basically getting liberation from birth, old age, death and disease. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. All right. So very interesting to hear all this. Oh, can everyone see this picture, this slide?
No, Maharaj.
No.
Huh? No.
Nothing came up.
No slide.
No slide. Okay, wait. I have to come out. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, good. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, we're here. Oh, we did this. Let's see. Okay, so we covered this. We were at the objectives. Overview of chapter 9. So we heard about the contents of chapter 9, that Maharaj Yudhisthira comes to the place where Bhīṣmadeva is laying on the bed of arrows, and he's very dejected. and he's with Lord Kṛṣṇa and Srila Vyasadeva and great sages. And Grandfather Bhīṣma receives them and welcomes them. And then at Maharaj Yudhisthira's request, Bhīṣmadeva gives instruction about Varnashram, about ruling the kingdom. So we also spoke about application of Queen Kunti's prayers, about cutting off family affection when it's appropriate and inappropriate. If the family are devotees, generally it's considered inappropriate. But you have to consider also the age, that at a certain point in the life it's appropriate, even though the family may be devotees, because the tie of affection can be so strong, we may prefer, it may be not appropriate to remain in family life. The Pandavas as ideal executors of work, and discussed its relevance in our life. Well, we didn't really discuss its relevance in our life. The Pandavas, ideal executors of work, perfect character and hardworking, not parasites. So, very good example for us, all of us. We want to follow in the footsteps of these great devotees, certainly relevant for us. Yudhisthira's dejection listed reasons why he could not be convinced by the Lord. That Lord Kṛṣṇa wanted to show the glory of Grandfather Bhīṣma. He wanted everyone to know how he excels everyone in knowledge. He wanted everyone to understand that what had happened was due to the influence of time. It wasn't just the karma. Lord Kṛṣṇa wants to glorify his devotee, Grandfather Bhīṣma. He wanted to show how he's unaffected by his condition, the pain, the condition which he's in doesn't trouble him. He's transcendental to the pain of the material body. And we've just recently, in the last few minutes, we spoke about something of Bhīṣma's instructions on Varnashram Dharma and how they're relevant for ISKCON, our members. The teachings of Varnashram. We don't know when the world is going to fall apart, but it's coming very close to it in the recent year with the current situation. You don't know how long this kind of thing can go on. It may go on more, it may increase. More and more people may die. We may come to this kind of conclusion, come to this kind of situation where we have to reestablish the government. And we hope at that time there can be a good government and they can utilize some of Bhīṣmadeva's instructions for Varnashram. Everyone has a duty, everyone has work, everyone is taken care of, and everyone's a part of the society, right? Okay, that we covered. A final quote. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances, and hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, etc., are all made to revive our last relation with him. Hearing all these scriptures is essential. From the purport, chapter 8, text number 38.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, can you go back to last slide?
This one?
Thank you. This one. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Any final question? Any comments? Anything? So if not, we'll meet tomorrow. We'll continue to hear more about Grandfather Bhīṣma and his glorious departure? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. Raj, Dandavats.
Dandavats. All glories.
Thank you, Maharaj.
All glories to Prabhupada. All glories to Guru Maharaj.